Uh, Hello everyone, welcome to Guwahati MuleSoft Meetup Group. The topic for our today's meetup is MuleSoft Certified Developer Level 2 overview session. So our speaker Ankita will give an overview for the preparation for L2, like what all stuffs are required in order to prepare for that. Next slide, please. So before starting, some safe harbor statement. So both the speaker and the host are organizing this meetup in individual capacity only. We are not representing our companies here. This presentation is strictly for learning purpose only. Organizer or presenter do not hold any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirement. This presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. Some housekeeping. So a recording of this meetup will be uploaded in the meetup page, and I will share the link over here. So within 24 hours, you will get the meetup video. If you have any questions, it's a preparation session, so just feel free to unmute yourself. You have already got the mic access, so unmute yourself, ask any questions what you have. We will love to clear that out. And at the last, when the meetup is over, you will get a feedback form. So we'll request you just to fill that up. Let us know how you like the session or what all different session you want us to come in future, and we'll try to bring it up. Next one, please. So it's about me. So I'm the organizer of the meetup. Ankita, maybe you need to put one more. Yeah. Okay. So
Okay.
I'm the organizer for the meetup. My name is Abhishek. I'm working as an associate solution architect in Epicero. I'm a MuleSoft ambassador, the frequent speaker, leader for Guwahati and Lucknow meetup group, certified developer and architect. Total 8+ years of experience and 6+ in MuleSoft. I am industry and GTM champion from MuleSoft. I have done few other certification like Solace, Delbumi, and JCP. I write blogs and create technical videos, and I own a patent for developing a portable washing machine. So that's all about me. Over to you, Ankita. Now you can take it over.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. And once again, welcome all of you to this wonderful session. A quick introduction about myself. So, I will be today's speaker. Thanks a lot, Abhishek, for giving me this opportunity to speak in Guwahati Meetup. I'm a certified MuleSoft developer and architect, currently working as a manager technical training in Epicero, where I manage most of the technical training in the L&D department, learning and development department. As a whole, I have more than 12 years of experience now in various fields like IT. As I have worked as an IT analyst, quality analyst, and now I'm working as a trainer plus managing all the technical training in the organization. I'm also design thinking certified, and my niche is training delivery and content curation as of now. So let's move on to the agenda of today's meetup. In this session, we are basically going to talk about what is MCD L2 exam all about. So we are going to understand about MuleSoft because those who are new to MuleSoft, we will start from the scratch. We will talk a little bit about L2 examination. Then we will talk about the prerequisites that would be needed for this exam and the exam format, along with the validity of the exam. Apart from that, we are also going to talk about some preparation tips. So I will be talking about some important concepts and will help you understand, or help you streamline if you are preparing for giving this certification exam. And at the end of the session, I'm also going to talk about a few of the important exam topics. So basically, the course highlights, where we will discuss about a few interesting topics. And as Abhishek has already mentioned, this is an open forum. So definitely, we do have a Q&A session at the end. But if you have any kind of questions, any kind of confusions, doubts, please feel free to unmute yourself and share your thoughts. And not only questions, but if you have any other inputs too, so please share it. Together we can learn and grow, right? So having said that, are we good to start? All of you are with me? Yeah.
I
Okay.
think yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Okay. I'm taking the silence as yes then. All right. So let's start with the introduction. So first of all, what is MuleSoft? We all know about MuleSoft. It provides the most widely used integration platform for connecting applications, data, and devices in the cloud and on-premise. Right? MuleSoft is an integration platform basically, which has integrated all the other solutions, domains, languages, applications, data, everything on one platform. It provides the most widely used integration platform for connecting the applications, data, devices. I think I have repeated it. I'm so sorry about it. And then MuleSoft provides the why it is repeated. I don't understand. I'm so sorry about this confusion. So basically, MuleSoft. I'll tell you the Mule mantra of MuleSoft is it is made from two words, mule and soft. And mule, as you all know, is a hybrid of horse and donkey, where donkey represents repetitive task and horse represents fast delivery. And that is the mantra of MuleSoft. So, what MuleSoft says is try to avoid the repetitive tasks as much as you can, because we are into the IT industry where change is constant. And if we are doing the same task again and again, there will be a very small room to innovate and to grow. And that is why MuleSoft has come up with a solution where it actually tells us it uh, you know um, encourages us to be more innovative rather than doing the repetitive task again and again, the task that we are doing for all kind of softwares, all kind of applications. We don't want to do that. We just want to be innovative about it, and along with that we want also to have a fast delivery to our clients. That is the mantra of MuleSoft. Okay.
And just to add, like as we are talking about repetition, so this is what we are showing over in the slide. Like we have repeated the points, so that is very weird. Like repeating the same task again and again. So that's where MuleSoft can help us.
Absolutely, Abhishek. Thank you so much. All right, so let's move on to about MCD level 2. This MuleSoft Certified Developer Level 2 exam validates that a developer has the required knowledge and skills to expose production ready anypoint platform managed APIs from the Mule application. So, in MCD Level 1 course, you gain the skill of developing an application, right? And you understood that how MuleSoft can help you. It gives you a platform wherein you can develop your applications independently, and you can integrate your applications with any other domains and applications outside the network. But this level 2 will actually expose you to create more advanced kind of Mule applications. You will learn how to implement maintainable and modular Mule applications and their Maven builds. So using Maven, you will understand that how can you handle the dependency management and how can you make your applications more modular and maintainable. It will also help you to understand how to manage and monitor your applications through health check, through anypoint monitoring, anypoint visualizer. So not only developing an application, but once it is deployed, then it is our foremost duty to make sure that the application is working fine. And that has to be done with the continuous monitoring approach. We will also talk about, MCDL2 also helps us to learn how to make our applications performant and reliable. So not only the functional areas, but also the non-functional areas are being covered in MCDL level 2 in detail, wherein you will be able to make your applications to be more performant. Because in the beginning of the session itself, we talked about repetitive tasks, right? So to avoid doing the repetitive task, we have to come up with a solution that could be reusable. We have to come up with a template that could be reused so that we do not have to do the same task again and again. That is the reason NFRs comes into the picture. And using these NFR, we should be able to make our applications more performant, highly performant, highly available, as well as reliable. And definitely security. When you are making applications which are reusable, you cannot compromise with the security feature. And definitely when the ecosystem today is vulnerable. So we will also understand in MCT level 2 how can we secure our data at rest and in transit using different protocols that MuleSoft has provided to us. So, as an MCDL2 developer, you should be able to independently work on production ready Mule application. So, the application which is already developed and is ready to be deployed, you will be able to work on it independently. These applications that are ready to be used in DevOps environment, in professional software development projects, where balancing critical non-functional requirements, including monitoring, performance, maintainability, reliability, and security. So in a nutshell, not only we are going to learn about the functional aspects of developing an application, but also to make sure that all the non-functional areas are covered equally. Okay, so this is an introduction about MuleSoft Certified Developer Level 2 exam. I hope we are clear so far. Any questions, any confusions? All good?
Team, anyone have any question? Please feel free to ask if you have.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what are the prerequisites for this examination? First of all, you should be an MCT level 1 certified. Okay, because until and unless you are not sure about the fundamentals, we will not be able to understand the advanced level of this technology. So, you must have this MCT level 1 certification done. Completion of any point platform development fundamentals course. So this course actually helps us to do this certification. So please make sure that you have completed this course thoroughly, not just for the sake of certification, but also you understood the concepts throughout. Completion of the any point platform development Mule 4 for Mule 3 user course, which means that if you have migrated from Mule 3 to Mule 4, so it is a must for you. You must have completed this particular course. Experience using Maven to build Mule 4 application is a plus because we are going to learn about Maven in MCT level 2. Because Anypoint Studio is integrated with Maven. Anypoint platform is integrated with Maven. So having a knowledge of Maven will, help you to leverage the benefits of Maven in Anypoint Studio or Anypoint platform while developing your application. So it is good to have it is good to have. You must have this Maven knowledge to build your Mule 4 applications. Not only for the understanding and learning purpose, but also from the certification perspective. Because in certifications, we do get questions related to this. Okay. Having a project experience is an add on. So, if you have experience in working on any of the Mule applications, Mule 4 applications before, then definitely it is an add on. But this doesn't mean that if you do not have any kind of exposure, you are not a fit to give this examination. Not at all. Okay? Because this examination basically tests your concepts and knowledge. Definitely having an experience gives us this extra advantage, right? Because not only you learn a concept, you apply it in the real time. So definitely it gives you, that leverage. However, if you do not have any project experience, that's not to worry about it. Please do not feel underconfident or feel that you will not be able to give this examination. Not at all. Okay, I'll give you my example here. I'm coming from a training background right now. I'm working in learning and development field, and I have I really do not have a real time project experience as of now, but yet we were able to. I mean, all the trainers are able to crack this examination. How? Because of the concepts and knowledge testing. Okay, so why I'm telling you this? Because if you are new to this field, please do not feel underconfident and please be focused about the concepts and knowledge that we are going to discuss during this course. Okay, I hope I'm making some points here. Everybody is good? Any questions? Any confusions? Okay,
I don't see anything in the chat.
sure. So, what is the exam format? Just like L1, format is multiple choice, closed book, and proctored, of course. And since thanks to pandemic, now all the exams are online. So, yeah, it's you can give your exams from home, and it is proctored. Okay, length 60 questions, duration 120 minutes. Pass score is 70%. Language will be English. You can take the exam a maximum of 5 times within a 24-hour wait between each attempt. Okay, so this is what MuleSoft has proposed. All right, but every organization might have their own, what do you say, own ways of giving reattempt. I mean, giving opportunities to reattempt to their, associates. So this is something which MuleSoft proposes. Validity. This is interesting, actually. First, the certification expires 2 years from the date you pass the exam, just like any other MuleSoft certification. And to extend the certification validity after this date, you can take this exam again. So we have a maintenance exam, just like we have it for any other MuleSoft certification exams. So you can extend the certification's validity. However, the plus point is that passing this exam will also extend the validity of your MuleSoft Certified Developer Level 1 certification for the next 2 years. So if you are focused on L2 certification, then don't worry about the renewal of your L1 certification. It will automatically get renewed after your L2 will be renewed. However, if your L1 is already expired and after that you are giving this MCT L2 examination, then this thing will not work. First, make sure that you have an active L1 certification that can be renewed. Then only L2 certification will help you to renew the L1 certification. But if it is already expired, then you have to first give a maintenance exam to renew your L1, and then you can go ahead with the L2 examination. Okay? Makes sense? Interesting, isn't it? I hope everybody is with me. All good so far?
Team, can you put on chat at least? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Gundeep.
glad-
All right, great.
Thanks,
So
guys. Yeah.
let's move on to the next slides. In this slide, we are going to talk about preparation tips. So, how should you start preparing for your L2 certification exam? And if you are already preparing for it, you can, just compare if you are on a right track. First of all, what do you need to prepare for this L2 examination? So, all the contents will be provided under instructor led training program run by MuleSoft. There are two training programs: Anypoint Platform Development Production Ready Development Practices, which is the content for this particular training is for 24 hours. That is, if you are taking a training under MuleSoft, so it will be like for 3 days, 8 hours per day. And second training is Anypoint Platform Development Production Ready Integration Training. So which runs for 32 hours. Okay, 32 hours in the sense, if you are taking this instructor-led training under MuleSoft, they will cover the entire content within 4 hours. I mean, in 4 hours, 8 hours per day. Okay, I've got a question. Suppose if anyone have just completed L1 recently, then also the expiry will extend. Like if L1 is going to expire on 25, then after L2 the new expiry. No, 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 no. Um, okay, I am a little confused here. Abhishek, would you like to pitch in?
Uh, so what I understand is the new expiry date will be, what I understand is like if in 2020 like 2025 the L1 is going to expire and someone is attempting L2 before that expire, are you talking about that, Manisha? Maybe you can speak up and you can say like what exactly you want to mean. Yeah, so what she mean is like suppose in 2025 my L1 is going to expire, suppose in April it is expiring, but I have given L2 in March, right? Just before 1 month before the L1 is expired. So that will count, right? That will be a valid one only. Ankita.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
So that will
I thought that if, I mean, I'm taking it in a different way. What if,
uh,
Abhishek, let's say I have given my L1 exam today. Okay.
okay.
So
Yeah.
today is 19th August 23. So
Mhm.
definitely my validity of L1 will be 19th August
25.
25. Correct.
Yep. Yep.
Now, tomorrow, let's say I give L2 examination. That would be
Mhm.
20th August 23.
Mhm.
Now the validity of my L2 certification is also 20 August 23. But after this certificate is getting renewed, my L1 should automatically be renewed again, right? So is it going to be 27 from 2025 to 2027 once my L2 is renewed?
Yeah. So for L1 also it will renewed automatically, right? If you are passing like before expiring of L2, if you pass L2, automatically your L1 get renewed, right? You don't need to
Correct.
appear
But
for
my
it.
L1 is already renewed now. My L1, I have given my L1 today, and
Yeah.
now the validity is till 2025.
Correct.
And tomorrow I'll give
Okay. You're talking
L2.
about in that way, like
Ha.
okay,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
if
I
I
thought that this is that question, so I
no
got
no no.
confused.
Yeah, that's a valid point. A valid point again. Like now, suppose I have already given individually, I have given my L1,
Ah.
and the validity is till 19th of August 2025. But now I have a valid L1 and I'm giving my L2. So if I'm giving
Mm-hmm.
my L2, suppose on 30th of August
Mm-hmm.
2023, so will
Mm-hmm.
my date for L1 also change? Like, does it also
Correct.
get 30th August 2023 as a
Mm-hmm.
completion? But I don't think
Mm-hmm.
like if you already have a valid active L1 certificate, and even though you are giving L2 after that, it is going to shift that date for the L1 again. I don't think that should happen. That is
Mm-hmm.
mostly related to L2 only. So next time if you are doing L2, okay, even though your L1 is expired, then that should automatically renew your L1.
Okay. No, you should have an active L1 certificate to get it renewed. If it is already expired, then we cannot renew it. That is for sure.
So you get 3 months, like, okay, like before your renewation. Like now, suppose in August it is going to expire, you get a maintenance before 3 months, right?
Correct.
So if you are repairing it before 3 months, then automatically like that adjust your time.
Mm-hmm. Correct, correct. I think Sagnik, your point is correct.
Yeah,
Both L1 and L2 expiry dates match.
that,
Yes, yes, yes. This is actually
they
right.
should be valued on, yeah.
Correct.
But that's a good question. Yeah, thanks Manisha for putting
Yeah.
that up.
Okay. So we will also check with the MuleSoft team and we'll see if Sagnik, your point is valid or not.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, let me
All
also
right.
know.
sure.
Haha.
Let me also know. I am having the idea like it is in this way, but if it is
Yes,
something
yes. No, no,
else,
definitely, definitely. We'll put it in the. I mean, Abhishek, please let us know.
yeah.
Yeah, I will note it. I will ask Sabrina or Mehna
Yes.
on this, because what I also understand, like if you are doing L2 and if your L1 is in renewal, then automatically your L1 will renewal with your L2. So
Correct.
I'll you ask this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so let's move on. So yes, we were talking about the contents to prepare and how to prepare it. So basically, MuleSoft runs instructor-led training programs, and these are two training programs, which is production-ready development practice and production-ready integrations. So all the contents which are covered in this instructor-led training programs help you to prepare for your MCT Level 2 examination. Okay. Followed by this, we also have a practice exam. Like for any exam, MuleSoft has given us mock test kind of thing, right, in the form of a practice exam. So please, this is a must. Definitely go through the practice exam given in the training.mulesoft portal. That will help you to understand and get a feel of how the actual exams, how the questions will be there in the actual examinations. This is very, very, very important. I keep on telling to all my resources who are preparing for L2 examination, do not forget, even if you have completed your training, even you already have project exposure, but please make sure before attempting to this examination, you go through all the contents which is present in the data sheet provided by MuleSoft. So if you want to know where data sheet is, let me quickly show it to you. I hope my screen is visible. So you just have to go to your training.mulesoft.com. Okay. Go to certifications. Go to certifications. Yes, definitely, Vijay. I'll share it. So under certification, you have MuleSoft Certified Developer Level 2 exam. Okay. So just open it. Okay, I'm gonna share this link also here in the chat group so that you all can bookmark it. So this is the level 2 exam, which contains everything that I have just now talked about, the prerequisites, the format, the cost, validity, and how can you prepare for this examination. So as I was clearly telling you that we have to go through these two practice, instructor-led training programs run by MuleSoft, and along with that, you have a link to practice exam. So all these links, you can click on it, and it will take you directly to the practice exam link. Now, as I was telling you about the data sheet, so you can see in the summary, under summary, here you have the data sheet link. Okay, just click on it, and it will take you to all the data sheets which is provided for all the certification exams by MuleSoft. So you can see all the data sheets for all kind of certification exams, MCPA, MCIA, MCT level 1, Catalyst specialist, MCT level 2, maintenance exam. So generally, I mean, we kind of skip it, but I always suggest all my resources to definitely go through the data sheets, okay, because it will give you the highlights and the highlights and the important resources link that will help you to prepare for the examination. So you just have to go to this L2 and click on it. It will download the data sheet, okay, and once it is downloaded, you can see the same summary, prerequisite format, everything is given over here. And along with that, it has given you the list of topics along with the resources. Okay. So, what are the topics which you need to cover to prepare for this examination along with the subtopics? And there are a lot of resources links which is also provided here. So, please do not ignore these links. Okay, even if you have completed your instructor led training, even if you already have your project exposure, but please mark my words, do not ignore these links. Okay, just to give you a quick example, for example, this is a link here, converting a JKS key store to PKCS 12. You will see, you might get questions related to this topic. Okay, and I have seen questions related to this particular topic in my exam. All right, so this is just an example, but you got my point, right? You have to make sure that you go through all the links, because these links are very important. They do not ask you questions, out of the world. They will never ask you any kind of questions. They will ask you the questions from the topics that they have uh, you know uh, given to you in the preparation links or in the data sheets. So stick to the contents that has been provided to you by MuleSoft. Okay. All right, so this is very important. And the mantra of any kind of examination or learning is revision and practice. The more you revise and practice, no one can stop you to get certified. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Now, the main agenda of today's morning, right? Course highlights. So let's go ahead. So, what are the important exam topics that we have to talk about? So here is the list of the most important topics. Okay. However, the topics which are given in the data sheet is equally important. Okay. For example, if I take you through all the topics one by one, let me do it that way. Let me take you through all the topics one by one. And after that, we will go back to the slide and we will see that if we haven't missed anything. Okay. So the first, basically this entire course, as I told you, is divided into two training. And in a nutshell, all the topics which are covered in these two training is, can be seen here, can be seen in the data sheet. So the first topic is expose production ready anypoint platform managed APIs from Mule applications. In this particular topic, in the course, we have talked about how to implement versioning of specific API related artifacts, configure custom or out of the box API policies, implement server-side caching of API invocations using API policies. So basically in this particular module, NFRs are discussed. Request access to an APIs while honoring environment-specific scoping, like when you create your property files, right? So for development environment, you have something like dev.config.yaml, then prod.config.yaml. So what is the purpose of environment specific scoping? Implement HTTP callbacks. Very important point. Callbacks are something that is being used in the asynchronous messaging, right? So, what is in asynchronous messaging? In asynchronous messaging, you send a message, but you cannot expect to get a response instantly. Synchronous is you send a message and you immediately will get a response. Okay, to and fro. But in asynchronous, you send a message and you cannot expect a response to be provided to you at an instant. For example, you ordered something on Amazon. You cannot expect to get that item delivered to your doorstep instantly. So for that, you have a tracking system. You can track your order. So this is how this is an example of asynchronous messaging. For example, you have submitted a claim. Okay, you have submitted a reimbursement in your organization. Do they reimburse the amount immediately? No. They first go through a lot of steps. They try to see that if your if the money that you have claimed for is valid or not, can it be approved or partially approved or rejected. You need to provide some support documents. They need to check it with their concerned teams. After a period of time, when the entire process is completed, then only you will be getting the response. However, during this time period, as a user, you have complete right to know about the status of your request. This kind of situations can be handled through callbacks. Okay, so whenever we have to handle the asynchronous messaging, we have to use either callbacks or polling, but here in L2 we have talked about callbacks. So how callbacks can be applied and what is the purpose of callbacks, everything is discussed in this particular module. And then we have also talked about code API implementations to perform API auto discovery. So in this particular segment, we have talked about um, the concept of auto discovery and gatekeeper feature. So in gatekeeper feature, what is that basically? You know that when you apply any kind of NFR through policies on your Mule applications, you know that, right? That MuleSoft has provided us a lot of out of the box policies. And in addition to that, you can create your own custom policies that can be applied on top of your Mule applications. But when these policies are applied to your applications are not bundled with those policies during the runtime. So, how it gets implemented? When the applications get downloaded, during that time, your policies are also downloaded. Okay. Now imagine you have downloaded the application and now the policies have started to download. And in the meantime, if the client wants to make a call to your application, then don't you think your application would be vulnerable at this point of time? It might be for a fractions of milliseconds. Okay, not even seconds. It happens in fractions of milliseconds. But there is a chance. There is a chance where your security can be compromised. So in this kind of situations, we have the concept of gatekeeper. So the gatekeeper comes into the picture and makes sure that while the policies are getting downloaded, your application should not be exposed. So during that time, if your gatekeeper is enabled, if the client will make a call to your Mule application, the client will get 503 service unavailable error. If the gatekeeper feature is disabled, then there is a chance that your application might get a call, and there could be a chance of security breach. So all these concepts are discussed here under the concept of auto discovery as well. In the auto discovery, basically what happens? You use basic endpoints to configure all the policies on top of your APIs, right? Unlike creating a proxy application. So in L1, you have learned about the concept of API proxies. In this segment, we have talked about how to apply policies using API auto discovery. Okay, so in this module, basically the concept of gatekeeper is important. The concept of applying NFRs through auto discovery is important. The concept of callback, that is webhooks, is very important, and of course the honoring of environment specific scoping. That what will be the priority of your configuration files. Okay, let's say there are three environments. Let's say there is a dev environment, test environment, and prod environment, and you have created some properties there. So which of the property will be called first? So how the priorities will be set? So this is something that you have to take care of. Now the people who have already worked with the projects and they already know about it, just I'm giving you a small tip to you guys. Generally what happens when we kind of working on something, we build a muscle memory, right? Even if you are not doing it consciously, but since you have already done it before, you will automatically click there. For example, whenever I have to start my training, I know where to go. So even unconsciously I'll go to this link because I know this is my training.mulesoft.com link, and I'll just go to that particular certification link. Just now I did it in front of you. But sometimes we are not mindful enough, we don't notice, and we are not very conscious while doing those steps. So now, after this session, once you will start working on all these things again, please be mindful of what you are doing. Because L2 exam is all about testing your concepts, your knowledge. And why I'm giving you this example? Because one of my resources, okay, and there was an instance where he used to work with OAuth. He has applied OAuth 2.0 protocol multiple times in his project, but in the examination, when he was asked that what are the three critical parameters or three required parameters that you need to provide to configure OAuth configuration, he was confused. He said, every day I'm doing the same task, but I don't know how I got confused. I was not even able to remember that what were the pointers or what were the parameters that I needed to fill. So it happens because of habit, because of practice, because it's our everyday job. We kind of get acquainted to it. We each and every steps that you are performing. And trust me, you will be very easily, are going to crack this examination. Okay. So this is about module 1. Any questions, guys? Any confusions? Any questions? All good? How much days one will need to prepare? Though it totally depend on one's ability to catch up and understand concept, but still just wanted a rough idea. So Manisha, as I told you, that if you go through these instructor-led training programs, so the first training program will be covered in 3 days by MuleSoft for 24 hours, and after that, 4 days for 32 hours, and after that, I think 15 to 20 days should be enough, depending upon your background. I mean, how good you are with Maven and how much exposure you have with working with the real-time projects. So it completely depends upon that, Manisha. Okay, am I making some sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. So where were we? One second. Okay, so the first segment is clear. Let's move on to the second segment now. So in second segment, we will talk about, I mean, in the course, we have talked about implement maintainable and modular Mule applications and their Maven builds. So in this particular segment, we have given emphasis on Maven. So in this, under this topic, we have learned how to modularize and optimize Mule applications Maven build configurations. So we will learn about the dependency management, what is a BOM file, POM file, and a parent POM file. So what is a BOM file basically? BOM file is an organization level file. Okay. Now, when you work with Mule applications, every now and then updates happens, right? So let's say you are working on a project and using HTTP connector version 1.17.1, and I am working on a project using HTTP connector using version 1.16.8. All right, can happen. Now, as an organization, you would always want that all your projects should be using the updated version of the application or the connectors or the modules palettes which is provided by MuleSoft. So, in order to make sure that there is a consistency in all the projects in the organization, we create a BOM file. Okay, BOM file is also known as bill of management files. Let me help you with some screenshots. A second. It will be easier for me also to explain. Okay. So what I'm trying to explain here is the dependency management in Maven, which is very important point from a certification perspective. So in dependency management, you have three kinds of files that you have to take care of. One is BOM file. Sorry about my handwriting and everything. Okay, it's not that bad. BOM file, parent POM file, and POM file. So BOM file is also known as bill of okay. So basically what happens in BOM file, you make sure that organization level dependencies and all the plugin versions are mentioned in one file so that any project whenever it is going to be whenever it is going to be kicked off in your organization, they all should follow this BOM file and there should be a consistency. Then you have a parent POM file. So in parent POM file, you mention the plugin configurations. So let's say you have 10 projects. Out of 10 projects, there are 5 projects which has to be deployed in Cloud Hub 2.0. So they all need to use the same configurations, right? Same detailing of the configuration to be deployed in Cloud Hub 2.2. So again, we started with avoiding the repetitive task. We don't want to repeat the task. We don't want to redo the same task again and again for all the projects. So what can we do? We can create a parent POM file and all the 5 projects can inherit these properties from the parent POM file. So in parent POM file, we majorly mention the plugin configurations that is supposed to be shared across multiple projects. And then you have individual or independent POM file. So this POM file will have the required dependencies or plugin information depending upon that particular project. So if a particular project needs a particular kind of dependencies that is not supposed to be shared across other projects in the organization, we can configure it in their independent POM file. So the relationship, the inheritance, how the inheritance happens, what is the relationship between these files, what is the purposes of these files is very important from the certification perspective. In Maven, we also have to make sure to learn about resource filtering. It's a very important topic. You have to, while you are working with Maven, you have to understand that what kind of errors comes while working with Maven projects and how to handle those errors. Then what is the role of a classifier? Okay, you have different kinds of plugins, you have different kinds of applications, so how the classifiers can be used in the Maven project for the same. So what is the purpose of a classifier? Along with that, in Maven, you also have to understand the concept of the snapshot versions. What is a snapshot version? So snapshot versions are the versions that represent that your applications are still under development. It is not a go live application. Okay, so if you have seen the version in the form of 1.0.0, so it means that it could be a GA version, it could be a production version. But if you have seen it is 1.0.0 under snapshot, it means that this particular application is yet to be developed. It is still under development. Now once this anypoint platform has been updated, now you have two options while publishing your applications or deploying your applications. Have you noticed it? One is stable and second is development. So stable is the projects which are deployed under stable, they are the ready to use, they are the reusable assets, they are GA assets, basically you can say that. However, the assets which are actually published or deployed under development phase, they are still under development. Okay, so when, because Exchange is a repository where you can publish for the reusability, for the sake of reusability. However, when you are reusing, when you are publishing something which is still under development, you have to make sure that it is published under the development stage. Okay, there is a difference. Once this particular application is deployed under stable with the GA version, we cannot delete it, we cannot overwrite it. Okay, try to publish one asset with this version and then try to publish another asset with the same version, you will get an error that this asset already exists, because this is already a developed version, you cannot rewrite it. But in case of snapshot version, you can rewrite the assets. So if it is 1.0.snapshot, then if tomorrow if I want to make certain changes and I want to redeploy the application under the same version, it will allow me, it will overwrite the same application. Okay, so what is the role of snapshot versions and how can we apply it in the Maven builds? How can it be used in the Maven coordinates? All these things have to be taken care of while preparing for your L2 examination. Okay, so this is about Maven. Also, how to implement Maven-based automated deployment to Mule runtimes. So please make sure you do cover everything under this building a Mule application and Mule Maven plugin for deploying MuleSoft applications. Okay. Along with that, we also have some quick links to prepare for Maven provided by Apache. It's a suggestion to please go through those links. Okay. If these links are already there in the data sheet also as a prerequisite, and also in this training.mulesoft certification links. Okay. So if you go through it, you will get a 5 minute. I'll quickly show it to you just to help you understand. So under this, sorry, so if this is this development practice, okay, so if you open this link, MuleSoft has provided all the information at one place. Okay, so please make sure you go through it before giving any examination, not just L2. Before you prepare for any examination, make sure to go through these portals, they are very helpful. Okay, see, A solid understanding of essential Maven concepts is very important, and these are the two links which are given, which will help you to start with Maven. So Apache Maven tutorial, Maven in 5 minutes, Maven getting started guide. So please make sure you go through it. Okay, and whatever topics that I told you right now, everything is covered here. Okay. Next is MUnit. So execute MUnit tests with Maven. MUnit, as you already know, is an integrated tool with Anypoint Studio that helps us to do the unit testing of our applications. So what is the purpose of MUnit? How can you use different palettes or different connectors which is provided for MUnit? How the use cases are created, how the test cases are created, how the reporting happens. So all these things will be covered here under MUnit. So please make sure you go through it. While preparing for it, focus on the syntax. Again, I'm repeating the same thing, unlike what MuleSoft says us to do. But since this is a preparation course itself, so I have to do this. When you work on a project, you might have worked with it for a multiple time, right? But please focus on the syntax. In MuleSoft, everything is automated, so we sometimes you do not have to write the entire code also, and that is where we kind of miss a few pointers. So when you are preparing for the examination, please be mindful of the codes that you are writing. The XML which is already being provided to you, configuration XML, which gets automated every time you add any, you make any changes to your Mule application through graphical version. Please be mindful of that. You might get questions related to syntax also in MUnit. Okay. Next is building custom API policies. So to build custom API policies, I'll quickly share one link. Again, the link is already provided to you under docs.mulesoft.com. How policies are created, sorry, how the custom policies are created. So just like whenever we have to apply NFRs on our Mule applications, you already have out of the box policies, right? But sometimes for the sake of the client requirement or project requirement, we might need to develop our own custom policies. But the thing in MuleSoft is, when you are doing something, don't do it only for yourself. Keep in mind that this could be reutilized again by any other applications in future. So whenever you are developing something, make sure to publish it in the exchange and make it available and discoverable in the repository. So that's what here also we will do. We will try to create our custom policy from scratch and will make it reusable by deploying it or publishing it in the exchange. So everything is mentioned in under this docs.mulesoft.com, and the same thing has been discussed in the course as well. So when you are preparing for this certification exam, try to understand how the policies can be created from scratch. What is the purpose of a YAML file and an XML jar file? XML template and the YAML configuration file. Try to understand what is the purpose of these files, how the custom policies are created. And along with that, it is very important to understand the basic XML structure of your custom policies. Okay, extremely important point. You have to understand how the calls happens internally when you define your policy, how these policies are being triggered. Once the policy is triggered, how the another flow will be triggered or how the another connector is going to be triggered. So everything is very very well explained under docs.mulesoft.com under basic XML structure. Please make sure you go through these topics. Okay, under your custom policy development. In addition to that, we have also covered encapsulating common Mule application functionalities in the libraries. So how can you create libraries and modularize your application by encapsulating them as a common Mule application. And I'm actually talking about XML SDK here, right? So what is an XML? How can you use this XML SDK? You can create your own custom connectors through XML SDK. So while creating your custom connectors, again the link is already there in docs.mulesoft.com as well. But here is a quick link that I would like to show you in this particular training because it was easier for me to show you the structure. So first of all, try to understand that XML SDK helps you to build your own custom connector in Mule applications or in MuleSoft. So the custom connector has a certain framework, it has a structure. So under structure, any application, any connector application will be encapsulated under module. So that is what it was trying to tell you there. that encapsulate it under module, and inside module you create operations. Okay, what is the purpose of that connector? What are the operations of those connector? For example, in HTTP module, you have different connectors. You have HTTP request operation, you have HTTP listener operation, and each operation has their own roles to do. So same thing, if you are creating a module, let's say here they have created a calculator connector. So what are the operation for that? So the first operation is to calculate. So once you have defined the operation, you would like to take the user input. Correct? What will be the user input? So the user input will be defined under parameters. So whatever you define here, it gets rendered as a UI in the real time. Okay, once this application is being reused, so in the studio you will see that all these fields are rendered in the form of a UI. So this is the parameter. After that, the logic, how to process the input that you have received from the user, will be defined under body segment. Okay, the logic is written under the body segment. The output of this particular logic will be mentioned under the output segment. And if there are any kind of errors that you might need to handle for your custom connector, that also can be encapsulated under error tag. Whenever you create an error tag, definitely you will be creating a custom error type, right? Because let's say under the hood your application is using HTTP connector, but if there is an HTTP timeout, you will have to map it with the calculator timeout error. Correct? So when you are giving that particular kind of error type and you are reusing it, you need to mention it in your code while creating your custom connectors. Custom connectors are basically created using Maven archetype. Okay, so you have to learn how to use Maven archetype. And second, when you are designing your connector, then what is the role of these operations, parameters, body, input, output, everything will be covered under the framework of your connectors. Okay, so this is very important again from the certification perspective that has been covered under these two topics. How can we encapsulate common Mule application functionality in libraries and implement custom message processors using the Mule SDK or XML SDK? All these links are very important. Please do not ignore. The custom policy link that I showed you is the same link, and the XML SDK link is here. Okay. Any questions? Any confusion so far? Are we good till this point? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on then.
Uh,
The next segment. Huh, yes,
we
Abhishek.
have one from Rahma. So I read the training are migrated to Tailhead. Are this detailed? It will be moved to Tailhead or still be? So Rama, some of the trainings are moved to Trailhead, not all. So what for L2? What Ankita has shown, it is still in the training.com. You can get it from there, the data sheet and everything. You don't need to move it to the lead. I think like MCI, MCPA, those are moved completely to Trailhead, what I understand. But this one is over here, so you can still get it. So it will be mentioned over here. You will go to the training account, na? So there it will be mentioned which has been moved to Trailhead and which is still over there. Yeah, I get it.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek. So let's move on to the next segment. In the next segment, we have talked about how to implement monitorable Mule applications. So basically, how to use Anypoint monitoring, Anypoint functional monitoring, and Anypoint visualizer to keep an eye on the health check of your applications. So under this topic, we have covered how to expose health check endpoints from a Mule application. So you might have used /alive and /ready endpoints. Now, what is the difference between /alive and /ready? If something is not working, if let's say /alive endpoint is not working, then does a restart help or not? If /ready is not working, do you think a restart will help or not? So this kind of concept should be very clear. Now, as you might know, /alive is the endpoint that you test to see if the application's endpoint is working fine or not, right? The endpoint that the user is going to use to expose that application is working fine or not. But /ready helps you to check whether the downstream APIs, on which the main application is dependent on, are they alive or not. So if your alive endpoint is not working, then a quick restart might help, because there is a chance that there could be a network glitch. But if your downstream APIs are not working, we can't be sure of it, right? Because we never know that my downstream APIs might be down, might not be working because of any issues. So these kind of things are very important. Along with that, you have to understand the concept of monitors, how to use public and private monitors to check, to do a health check, and the concept of anypoint visualizer. Anypoint visualizer gives you a live tracking of how the application is being, invoked, what are the dependencies on your applications, what are the policies applied, how can you troubleshoot the applications, everything can be seen using the visualizer. Implement effective logging. Logging helps you to track your applications, right? To keep an eye, to keep a watch on how the application is working behind the scenes. So for that, it is very important to understand the concept of logging. How can you change the log levels and aggregate and analyze your logs? There are different kinds of log levels, and basis on the connector, the palette that you are using, you have to understand that which log has to be activated to aggregate and analyze the data about a particular connector or about a particular flow. A quick, I mean, a quick understanding basically about the concept here. You have to understand that there are a lot of connectors which are using different other connectors under the hood. For example, we have used HTTP connectors, right? Now, HTTP connectors, if you will activate the log, HTTP connector log, then you should be able to track what is happening with HTTP connectors in your application. However, if I'll give you a quick example of web service consume operation, which is a SOAP service operation, right? You can invoke a SOAP service using that. So whenever you have to, configure the transport for your WSE connector, under the hood, it is also using an HTTP transport for that. So for WSE connector also, if you have to check the data, track the data using the logs, you will have to, enable your HTTP connector logs. So these kind of things are important to understand. So when you are talking about logging, you have to understand what is the purpose of logging and how the log, how the connectors are associated with other connectors, how the logs, what are the different kinds of log levels, and how they can be, activated to aggregate the logs. Next is monitor Mule application and Mule runtimes using Anypoint platform or external tool. The same thing I mentioned, using public and private monitors, visualizers. Implement message correlation, including persistence and propagation of correlation IDs over HTTP. Very important point. The link is also provided here. Correlation ID. What is the purpose of a correlation ID? Correlation ID is a unique ID which automatically gets generated once a flow is invoked. And this is the beauty of MuleSoft. MuleSoft automatically generates a correlation ID, a unique ID, once the flow is triggered. And using this unique ID, we can troubleshoot, we can track the entire flow, how the data is being, moving, the event is being moving from one component to another component. Everything can be tracked using the correlation IDs. Okay. So what is the purpose of a correlation ID? Can it be changed if a client would like to have his own custom correlation ID, a custom unique ID? Can that be done? Yes, that can be done using HTTP headers. Okay, so you have X hyphen correlation ID headers. Okay, so this kind of header can be used to create your own custom correlation IDs. So these kind of questions and these kind of this topic is very important, and not only from the certification perspective but also in the real world when you are going to work on different kinds of projects, you will be able to understand the importance of correlation ID and all the other topics that we have discussed. I'll give you again, I'll show it to you a few screenshots that will also help you. Correlation IDs. So, a quick understanding of correlation ID. These are immutable by design and cannot be changed within a flow. So, once the correlation ID is created, it cannot be changed within the flow. Okay. If you have to change it, it will need additional configurations, but by default, you cannot do that. Transport connectors like HTTP, JMS, VM. they automatically send the correlation IDs by default using this. I mean, that happens by default, but if the clients would like to set their own custom ID, they can use this X-correlation ID header. Now there is an exception. Anypoint MQ. If you are using Anypoint MQ connector, it will not automatically propagate the correlation ID. Okay, so throughout your flow, throughout your applications, throughout all the connectors, same correlation ID will work. But the moment you are using Anypoint MQ connector, the correlation ID will not propagate it. Anypoint MQ generates its own message ID, which has no effect on the mule message correlation ID. However, for the tracking purpose, if you want the correlation ID should match the message ID of Anypoint MQ, we have something called as tracing module for that. So in tracing module, you have with correlation ID scope, and using that with correlation ID scope, you can map the correlation ID that is being generated in the flow with the message ID in the Anypoint MQ. And using this, you can, have a consistent correlation ID throughout your application, even though you are using Anypoint MQ in between. So this is a quick diagram that you can see. So a client makes a call to an experience API, and let's say the default correlation ID is 1256. There is a process API making a call to another process API, same correlation ID. Second process API making a call to JMS, same correlation ID. The same process API made a call to MQ. You see the correlation ID has been changed because it's not the correlation ID. Now the MQ generates its own message ID, which is not, which is not as which is not the same as correlation ID, which means that the correlation ID will not get propagated automatically when MQ connectors are being used. The same correlation ID will work anywhere, be it a database, be it VM connectors, be it JMS connector, anywhere it will work except for MQ. This is an exception, and please be mindful of this. Okay? Any questions? Any confusions? Next is implement performant and reliable Mule applications. So as we were discussing that when you are developing your applications, not only the functional aspects, but the non-functional aspects are equally important, because at the end of the day, you want your applications to be reusable. Now, to apply this idea, we have object store persistence for all Mule deployment options. So object store is a wonderful feature of MuleSoft that helps you to store your data in a key value pair. It is not a substitute. It is not a substitute of database, because it has certain limitations. Okay, so please make sure you go through object stores topic like the configurations or the parameters that you use to configure your object stores, like what is time to live, okay, TTL, what is the expiration interval, what is a private object store. These are very important from the learning perspective as well as certifications perspective. Okay, what are the scope of different kinds of object stores? Like Mule object store is one thing. Object store on Cloud Hub, Object Store V2 that you know of, that is another thing. If there is a customer hosted on-premises environment, then how are you going to use Object Store? What are the scopes of Object Store? Everything has to be understood under this segment. Next segment is how to implement fault-tolerant, performant, and traceable message passing with the VM and Anypoint MQ connectors. So, reliability pattern is something that is being covered here. Reliability pattern says that under no circumstances we would compromise with the data loss. Okay? Because we are working in an integration platform. You are connected with different domains, different data, different applications. This is what we discussed in the beginning of this session, right? The concept of MuleSoft. So when you are dealing with different kinds of data, applications, network, you have to make sure that you cannot compromise with the data loss, because data has to go through a lot of domains, a lot of, what you say, a lot of connectors, lot of applications which are integrated with each other. So to achieve this reliability pattern under MCDL2, we have talked about VMs as well as Anypoint MQ connectors, that how this reliability patterns can be achieved. So in VM as well as any point MQ connectors, we have the concept of queues, right? We use queuing mechanism for that. Sorry. So queuing mechanism is something that helps you to do a point-to-point communication, correct? So in both VM and anypoint MQ, you have the queuing mechanism. In addition to that, MQ also, I mean, they both also has, not both, sorry, anypoint MQ also has pub sub feature. Pub sub means one to many feature. That means one publisher and many subscribers. So for that, in anypoint MQ, we have something called as anypoint MQ exchange. So once the message is being sent to anypoint exchange, all the queues which are configured with that exchange, they can receive the message through the exchange, and subsequently their consumers will be able to receive it. So using anypoint MQ exchange, we will be able to achieve the pub sub model. And let's say if the messages are not working, if there is a failure, okay, if there is something which has not worked, which is failing, and because of that my message is going back to the queue, then how are we going to handle it? Because if it will keep on going back to the queue, because you cannot compromise with the reliability pattern, so you cannot delete it. Plus, if you keep on filling your queue, the application, you might have to compromise with the performance of your application. There might be a delay, there might be a lag, processing delays that can happen. So in those kind of situations, we have something called as dead letter queue. So the concept of dead letter queue comes into the picture. So if some messages are not working, if some data is not working, you cannot keep them back in the same queue, because you keep on, you have to continue processing with the other messages, and this way your queue can get filled. Your queue might get full. So in those kind of situations, route those messages to the dead letter queues. In dead letter queues, what will happen there? You can process those messages in a different way. There might be a human intervention, there might be another different applications or machines where you can send your data to. So the concept of dead letter queue is very important. Along with that, there is a fault tolerant mechanism you might have heard with the queuing mechanism, which is circuit breaker. Circuit breaker is inbuilt in any point dead queue. So how circuit breaker can be used, what are the parameters of circuit breaker, everything is very important in your any point queue. Okay. Any questions related to this topic? Because this is very, very important topic, guys. Any point time queue, dead letter queue, correlation IDs, all good so far? Okay. Similarly, implementing fault-tolerant invocations of HTTP-based API is reacting correctly to HTTP status codes. So, there is something called as HTTP response validator in HTTP connectors. So, what is the purpose of these response validators? And using these response validators, how can we handle the errors which are permanent in nature and which are transient in nature? Okay, so all these things are covered over here. And to handle these errors, we also have to understand the concept of, until successful scope, retry scope. Okay, because fault tolerant mechanism is something that if there are any errors which is happening, the errors will start getting mitigated. The errors will start getting cascaded from one application to another application, and that is where you have to apply this fault tolerant mechanism, because you don't want because you are actually working in API led connectivity approach, right? There are multiple APIs which are connected and talking to each other. So if one API fails, the errors will keep on cascading and will, going ahead, and all the other APIs might get affected because of that. So how can you handle those errors using fault tolerant invocations? So everything will be covered in this topic. After that, under this module, you also have something called as validation module. Again, an important topic. Validation module helps you to validate your incoming requests. Okay, whether the request is validated as per the conditions that you have given. There are a lot of out of the box, operations which is already provided to us by MuleSoft. Along with that, there is also something called a schema validator that will help you to validate the messages against XML or JSON schema. So you have to understand the concept of Postel's law. There is something called as Postel's law. Postel's law says that be conservative while sharing your data with somebody else, but be lenient while accepting the data from the other party. Okay, when you are sending your message, be conservative about it. So if they have asked you only about your name and designation, just give your name and designation. Okay, don't give any other information, but be lenient when you accept. So if you are asking about name and designation, and if somebody else is giving you name, designation, as well as their experience, years of experience as well, you understood that there is an extra information here, but be lenient about it. Don't give an error. So all these things can be handled while validating messages against your XML or JSON schema documents. So I'll again quickly show you a screenshot. So this is Postel's law, robustness principle. Be conservative in what you do, be liberal in what you accept. Okay, this actually helps you to become a tolerant reader. The idea is to be as tolerant as possible when reading the data from other service. So if it is an XML schema, you can decide whether to validate your XML in a strict way or in a lenient way. Okay, depending upon the business requirement. So you can choose to be strict also. But there is a certain parameter that you have to work with. So if this process contents is equal to lakhs, if it is set to lakhs, then your XML schema will be lenient in nature, which means that you are following the Postel's law. So let's say there are two elements here. Okay, you just need the title and the tool. But if they are giving you some extra information also, it's fine. You will accept it. So here in this situation, if they have given you something called as version also, you will not give an error. You will not give an error. Okay, but if this is not set, then you will get an error, that is XML module schema not honored. Okay, you will get an error, schema not honored. You just wanted these two data and you are getting an extra data, so your schema has been compromised. Same thing with JSON. So in JSON also, you can decide whether to accept, which means whether to be lenient or be very strict about accepting the data. So if you have set this additional properties as false, which is by default false, so if you do not set this, then automatically your schema is a strict schema. It will not be a lenient schema. So in this kind of situation, it will give you an error, schema not honored. But let's say if you have set additional properties as true, then you are lenient basically. It will not give any error, even though you wanted only two of the data which is provided by the user. You are good to go. So this is very important. Validation module is also very important. In addition to that, in validation module, there is something called as all scope and any scope. Please make sure to understand the concepts. Okay, what is all scope? What is any scope? How do they work? And what kind of errors are being thrown by your all scope, any scope? All these things are very important from this particular topic. Okay. Till this point, any questions, guys? Am I going too fast? My pace is fine. I hope the session is okay. Okay, where to navigate if I would like to learn more about object store? To the right side, I don't see any reference link. Okay, so Ramachandran, if the links are not provided here, trust docs.mulesoft.com. Okay, that is our Bible. So if you want to find any information which is not provided here, go to docs.mulesoft.com. I'll quickly show it to you also. Docs.mulesoft.com. Okay, and then you can, yeah, Abhishek, thank you, you have already given the link. However, if you would like to browse for any other links or another other information also, just go to docs.mulesoft.com, and here you can look out for object store. So not only object store v2, store connector, persistent object store, everything is given here. Follow this document. Okay, you will never find any other document as good as MuleSoft documents. Okay, everything is given here. Any other questions, guys? Any other confusions? My pace is fine.
Yeah, that's good, Ankita.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. So let's move on to the next segment. Again, very, very, very important. Again, from the certification perspective, scatter gather. So in MCD L1, you have already learned about scatter gather, right? That how scatter gather can be used to parallel process your applications. I mean, if your application is connected with multiple other APIs or calling any database and you have to process them in parallel, then scatter gather is the answer to your question. Now, while working with scatter gather in level 2, we have to understand the advanced concepts. For example, what is the max concurrency here? What is the concept of saga pattern or compensating transactions for partially failed scatter gather? What is scatter gather basically? So first of all, everything is given here also, but let me give you a quick idea about what I'm trying to explain. So for that, I'm going to open my Jamboard. So I'll try to give you an idea of all the important topics basically. Now in scatter gather, as you already know, if you are using a scatter gather and you have to call multiple flows, then you can call them in parallel. Okay. But what if you want to call, sorry, am I audible?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you. Now, if you have to make a call to these three flows in parallel using scatter gather. Now, what if you have to call them in sequence but in scatter gather? Then you have to change the max concurrency of scatter gather to 1. If you change the max concurrency of scatter gather to 1, then these flows are going to be called in sequence. They will not be called in parallel. Second thing is saga pattern. Saga pattern says that in scatter gather you are calling three flows in parallel. All right. Now let's imagine during runtime flow 1 has passed, flow 2 has passed, but flow 3 has failed. The moment flow 3 has failed, by default what will happen? The entire scatter gather will fail and you are going to intimate the calling flow that this flow has been failed, right? You are going to tell your client that the flow has been failed. That is fine. That is logical. And you can handle the error also. That's what we have learned in L1 course. But in this particular situation, there is one thing that has already happened. This flow has failed, but these two flows are successful. So let's say in this flow, you are inserting a data to a database. In this flow, you are adding, a column to a Salesforce account. And in this flow, let's say you are calling an external API and this flow has failed. Since this flow has failed, it's okay, you have given an error, but these two things has already been done. So the saga, I mean, since these two part has already been done, when the next time you're going to run it again, what will happen? These two flows are going to be called again, correct? And once these flows are going to be called again, there is a chance of data redundancy, data duplicacy, repetitive task that you don't want to do. Hence, saga pattern comes into the situation, comes to the rescue basically. What saga pattern says that if flow 3 has failed and flow 1 and flow 2 has passed, undo the changes that has already been done by flow 1 and flow 2. Come back to the original state to maintain the consistency of your entire application. So the saga pattern will say that okay, flow 1 is passed, which means insertion has done. Flow 2 is done, which means addition of the data has been done. Flow 3 has failed, which means that this API was not invoked. So in order to handle the error and come back to the original state, to achieve the consistency, let's undo the changes that have already been made. So if the data has already been inserted, delete the data from the database. If the data has already been added, delete the data from the database and make sure that it has been added to the original table from where it has been pulled out. The source is updated well. This is the concept of saga pattern. Okay, this is also called as compensation logic. Whenever an error will happen, both the success route as well as the failure route will be mentioned under error object. So error type dot, if it is a success route, it will be results. If it is a failed route, it will be failed. Okay, so here in this situation, you always remember that array starts from 0, right? So here also the object will start from 0. So path is 0, 1 and 2. So what are my success routes? 0 and 1. What is my failed route? 2. So which are the routes that has to be compensated? Route 0 and route 1. This is the idea of saga pattern. This is the idea of scatter gather. Understood the concept of scatter gather? Any questions? Any confusions? Okay, very important topic again from the certification perspective. The last part of this topic is client-side caching of API invocations for performance. So for performance, we know that there is something called as caching that we can use to avoid the network hop, and we can use a memory fed footprint like object store to store our data locally. So there are two ways caching can be applied. One is through client side and second is server side. So for server side caching, we have HTTP policies, and for client side caching, we have cache scope. Again, very important point from the certification perspective. One exception in caching is always remember variables cannot be cached. You can cache any data, any payload, but variables cannot be cached. Okay. So this way, our this segment is also completed. We are left with the last segment. So before we move on, any questions, any confusions? We are
Can I
good.
s- can I speak up?
Yes, please.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so if we can go back to the previous slide,
Mm-hmm.
also the similar question that I asked you, you answered. So I'm trying to translate this document. It's really helpful. So, for example, the last topic that you explained, the pattern, Safa pattern, and also that is related to the scatter gather. I'm trying to look up same in the docs.mulesoft.com,
Okay.
uh, but I'm not finding anything like what is Saga or what is the compensation mechanism. So maybe if you can just
Sure,
yeah
sure.
touch up
I will
with
let you
that,
know.
then it would
So
be
you
easy for us.
can definitely. So you can go to the scatter gather router. I believe this is the link,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Scatter gather router link.
yeah.
So yeah. Sorry. Okay. So under this scatter gather router, error handling inside scatter gather routes, you can see this. So what are the two kinds of errors? Okay, so this is the composite error and all. Timeout error. They have just given you the examples. And let me, there are subtopics as well. If I quickly search it for you. Abhishek, if you have it handy, I request you to please share it. Meanwhile, I'll quickly.
I need to search. I
So
don't
it's
have it.
Yeah.
it's all by the trial and error. So that you have to just based on the topic search by
Yes, yes,
just okay.
basically,
Got it.
yes. So they
Yeah,
have
well,
just because they cannot give you all the subtopics also, right? It must be under any subtopics here.
got it, got it. Okay,
Yeah,
then
but
that's what I
huh.
also wanted to check. Okay, is it just one-on-one mapping or something that we have to look up by ourselves?
No,
That,
no, 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 no. Definitely one-on-one mapping is there for a few of the topics, but
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
you have to do an in-depth study about it.
Okay. Okay. Clear. And also one more follow-up question on the same saga pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something that out of the box, like you said, like out of three flows, one
Mm-hmm.
fails, and then you go and roll back all the transactions that you have done?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, most of the things that you do is in orchestrations. The scatter gather, all this logic will come in process API, but then all the insertion or the CRUD operations will be in the system API.
Mm-hmm.
So is it just by mentioning the composite logic that it going to revoke all the transactions, or is it something that we have to build? Okay, if it's based on the error type dot results,
Mm-hmm.
if there is one flow failure, then you build a flow to call the system APIs to do the delete or rollback operation. Is it something we
Yes,
have to build?
yes.
Or
Yeah.
okay, okay,
I got your question. Exactly, yes. So there is no such, shortcut for this, basically.
okay, okay.
Yeah, we do. There is nothing like that. You have to just set the numbers and it will work. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
you have to write the logic accordingly. You have to build
Okay,
your own mechanism because these flows could be different. For me, it is doing an insertion and an addition. For you, it might be doing something else. So the
yeah,
compensation logic will vary from project to project and the application to applications.
yeah.
So, but this is the formula. You have to figure out that what are the routes which are successful, what are the routes which have failed, and based on that, you can write your own compensation logic.
Okay, perfect.
So,
Thanks.
in the training, basically the training which is being provided by MuleSoft, these are all being done under a walkthrough. So in walkthrough, we consider a user story, we consider a use case, and basis on that, we create all our applications. We create these flows basically and apply the logic.
Yeah. Okay. Clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the other challenge is, yeah, like I've taken the production ready trainings some time back due to some
Okay.
other deadlines. I was not able to, follow up, do some learnings and finish the certification. So it's like, yeah,
Okay.
there
Okay.
was some gap. That's why I'm
That's
trying.
okay. See, that's okay because it's generally when we take our, whenever these training comes up, they ask you to keep a gap because this could be too overwhelming because
Yeah.
there are a lot of contents. So
Exactly.
even my suggestion would be that once you have completed one part of the training, please make sure that you go through the links and the topics which are provided, do a revision, do a practice, be
Yeah.
confident about your first part, and then move on to the second part because second part is all about integrating. So in the first part, if you have already undergone the training, you must have created the templates,
Yeah.
right, of your process APIs and different other APIs. But how to integrate them in the real time? This is something which is covered in the second part.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you have missed it right now. I'm sure that you have already done your revision, and once the second part will come, you should be confident enough to go ahead with the integration part.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Sagnik, absolutely right. Saga is a mindset and a microservice pattern. It is not a feature exactly. So this is not something which is an inbuilt feature, just like circuit breaker, right? So circuit breaker is a concept. However, in any point MQ, it is an inbuilt feature, but the same concept can also be applied on any other, queuing mechanism. If you are using different other JMS and messaging brokers, there also we can apply circuit breaker concept. Okay. Thank you, Sagnik. Saga, Sagnik, yeah. Very well put. Okay, all right, jokes apart. So, yes, we were talking about caching, right? So, remember one thing, guys, variables cannot be cached. This is an important part. Shall we move on to the next segment? Yeah.
Yep, I guess, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the last segment is secure data at rest and in transit. Extremely important topic from the L2 perspective. Okay, extremely and extremely important topic basically. In this topic, we have covered how to implement secure environment dependent properties management. For example, if there are certain data that needs to be encrypted while working on an API, and you have to put it in the YAML file also because it's a part of the property, then how can you make it secure? So all these things will be covered here. Safely hide application properties. Next, create, package, and distribute keys and certificates. Again, in continuation to this topic, like how can you create your secure keys? How can you build your certificates? You can create them, package them, and then reuse them throughout your applications. So this will have this how to create your key stores and how to convert them if required from one format to another format. So this is the example that I gave you, right? That the links are important because you might get whatever question comes, they will come from the documents and the topics provided to you by MuleSoft. Okay. Expose and invoke APIs over HTTPS. So HTTPS is what? HTTP over SSL. So you mean authentication is needed while doing this invocation. So there are two ways you can invoke your APIs over HTTPS through one-way SSL and through mutual authentication. So what is a one-way SSL and two-way SSL? Let's quickly understand that also. Okay, so I do have a screenshot for this, but I would like to, explain it to you because that would be really easier for you to understand. So we are talking about two kinds of communication here, security protocols here, right? So one is one-way TLS or one-way authentication, and second is two-way authentication. So let me explain it to you one by one. So in one-way authentication, what happens? There will be a client and a server. Always remember one thing. Whenever the communication happens, it is always the client that starts the invocation. Okay, it will always be the client who will initiate the invocation. So the client will first make a call to the server here. Now, in the case of one-way authentication, it is the server who has to authenticate itself to the client. Client does not need to authenticate itself to the server. Okay, so I am the client, and let's say Mr. A is the server. So Mr. A will have to authenticate himself. I am not authorized, I am not supposed to authenticate myself here. This is one way TLS, one way authentication. So the moment client makes a call to the server, it is the server's responsibility to show his ID card to the client to make sure that the server is a authenticated server. So what server will do? Server will create a key store for himself. Key store is something where the server will keep his public key and certificate along with its private key. Okay. Now the client will send a message to the server, and this is the iCard of the server. Server iCard is key store. So whenever the certificates and the keys has to be stored, they will be stored under the key store. Okay. Now the server will show the ID card to the client. Okay. The server will share his public key and the certificate to the client. This client will have to validate if the credentials provided by the server is valid or not. So for that, there are two ways. First, either client will take help from a server certificate authority, and this certificate authority CA will be responsible to validate these certificates. The other workaround is the client will have a trust store, and using this trust store, the client will validate that the certificates and the key provided by the server is valid or not. If it is valid, then the communication will start. Then the validation has happened, and it means that the server is a valid server and the client will initiate the communication. Okay. So in one-way TLS, the client always verifies the server. Server never verifies the client certificate. Server will have a key store. Client can have a trust store, or client can go with a certificate authority. So trust store is optional. Okay. This part is clear. Understood the concept of one-way TLS? Guys, one-way TLS is clear? Give me a thumbs up, a yes, something that would be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, we have a two-way authentication. Okay, two-way TLS. In two-way TLS, again, there will be a client and the server. Again, no matter what, whether it is one-way or two-way, it is always the responsibility of the client to initiate the communication. However, in case of two-way communication, the server will verify the client as well as the client will also verify the server. It will be a mutual authentication, a mutual handshake. So first, the server will authenticate itself, and then the client will authenticate itself. Okay. Now what will happen? The server again will have to show his icon. So the server will have his
Ankita,
yes,
there is
Abhishek.
little bit background noise. Yeah,
Okay,
no, it's fine.
just give me 1 second. 1 second. I'll just shut the window.
Sure.
Yeah, now is it fine?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So yes, as I was saying, that in the two-way authentication, both server and client will have to authenticate themselves. It is always the responsibility of the client to initiate the communication. Now the server will have a key store. Key store is just like an ID card. Okay, you carry an ID card to show that you are an authenticated person. You are authorized to go somewhere. Correct. So the server will have a key store having the public key or certificate along with the private key in his key store. Okay. Now the first thing is server will validate himself. So the server will have to present his public keys to the client. Now the client can again go to the certificate authority to validate whether the ID provided by the server is valid or not. or the client can have his trust store for that. Okay, I can have my internal server for that to validate if the data is internal mechanism to validate if the data provided by server is valid or not. So the client can have an optional trust store, or the client can take help from a C. But this is a two-way authentication. So the client will also have to authenticate itself. Now the client will also carry a key store with his public key as well as private key. Now the client will also have to send his public key to the server. And now the server can again either take help from the certificate authority, or the server can have his own trust store to validate that the data provided by the client is valid or not. If both the validation is successful, if the client has successfully authorized the server and the server has authorized the client, then only the mutual communication is established. This is two-way SSL and this is one-way SSL. Is it clear? Both the parts are clear? You understood the concept of key store and trust stores? Yeah? Okay. I'm taking it as a yes. Now, in this particular topic, there is also something which is called as an insecure tab. Insecure tab says that I blindly trust you. Have you noticed that whenever you go to a mall or somewhere, there is a checking system, right? There will be a person who will be having a machine, and then okay, technically he is checking, but we all know that he's just doing a formality, right? I to have personally noticed it that whenever we enter into a mall, then the people are there to check to make sure that we are good, but they kind of do a formality. Why? Because they're blindly trusting. They have a blind trust on us. This is the job that you are trying to do here. So let's say in one-way SSL, if the client wants to blindly trust the server, then he will neither need a CA nor need a trust tool. He will quickly enable his insecure checkbox. And if this insecure checkbox is enabled, it means that client blindly trusts the server. Even if the server gives his certificates to the client, client says, okay, I'm good. You come in. Same thing can happen in two-way SSL also. In two-way SSL also, you can opt whether the client can blindly trust the server or the server can also blindly trust the client. In that situation, you have to make sure both of them will have an insecure checkbox. So if you enable the insecure checkbox for client, then the client will blindly accept the data provided by server. And if the server, checkbox is enabled, then the client can be authorized blindly. This is a very important point, again, from the certification perspective and also from the learning perspective. Any questions? Any confusion so far? Most of you, I believe, might have already worked with it also. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Okay. And the last part of this topic is implement API invocations authenticated by basic OAuth or OAuth 2 with HTTP or REST connectors. So in this particular segment, you have to understand how to apply OAuth 2.0 protocol to secure your applications. So there are different grant types provided by OAuth 2.0, like authorization grant type, client credential grant types. What are the differences of these grant types? What is the required parameters that you would need to configure these grant types? Under what circumstances these grant types are being used? All these things have to be understood under OAuth 2.0. Okay. Any questions? Any confusions? So with this, this is these are the important topics that you have to understand, and you have to make sure that you have a thorough confidence. You have gone through all the topics thoroughly, and you have confidence over all these topics before attempting this particular examination. So if I take you back to my slides. So I actually wanted to, I have actually covered all the topics, but while covering those topics, I have also highlighted the important exam topics, which is important for you to, focus on primarily. Mutual authentication, just now we spoke about it, OAuth 2.2, the different kinds of grant types, Maven and Mule. asynchronous messaging using callbacks, VM, concept of correlation IDs, scatter gather, the saga pattern as well as the transactions inside scatter gather, caching as well as object store, any point monitoring, any point functional monitoring, MUnit, and how to create your custom connectors as well as custom API policies. This is just a course highlight, okay? I'm not saying that rest other topics are not important, but these topics need, more practice. If you're doing it for the first time, you will have to practice and you have to understand the concepts thoroughly. And of course, all the topics that I have discussed in the data sheets are equally important, but these will carry more weightage in your examination. Okay. So with this, I'm done. I don't have anything else to say. This is just a prep session, so I'm unable to explain each and every topic to you. But I'm sure that Abhishek will definitely organize more meetups where we can cover, these topics separately and give you an insight about, about the concepts in general, so that you can apply it in the real time in your projects, as well as that will give, help you to prepare for your certification as well. Okay. Anything